I am Vinnie Tortorich, folks. Your good intentions have been stolen, but don't worry. I'm here to help you get them back. You may be soft and succulent at the beginning of this process, but hang in there. Before long, you will be lean and mean, guaranteed. Yeah, every time she comes on the show, she brings the goods. Folks, I'm talking about none other than Ms. Zoë Harcombe. Yeah. Zoë, every time you come on that song, everything reminds me of a song. You remind me of that song because you are a doctor. I want people to understand that, PhD. And you are you don't, shrink when it comes to some of these big subjects. You're not a shrinking violet is what I want to say. You are taking these things head on, and a lot of times they're not popular, but someone needs to give us the other side. And that's why I love having you on this show, because you always bring the goods. So thank you for being on.
Thank you.
With that in mind, look, I just did a consult 10 minutes before we started this podcast. I talk to people all day long, 5 days a week. One of the biggest questions I get is, well, they'll start with a statement before the question. They'll say, I started doing low carb, NSNG, whatever you want to call it, the Lion's diet, the Carnivore diet, one version of what you and I talk about a lot. And I'll go, that's great. And then they'll tell me all the success. My A1Cs went from 9 or 10 down to 4.9. My fatty liver disease is in check. I don't have all-cause mortality problems. I'm not staring at that crap anymore. Yeah. But my doctor wants to put me on the statin. And I'll say, why? And they'll say, because he thinks my cholesterol is too high. And I will say, I'm not a doctor, but would you mind just telling me what your total cholesterol is? Mm-hmm. And they'll say, oh, like 210, 220, 190. I hear these numbers, right? And they'll say, my doctor wants to put me on a statin. And I'll say, well, that sounds crazy. Why? And they'll say, well, because my bad cholesterol. And I'll say, well, what's considered bad? And they'll say my LDLs. They said my bad cholesterol is really high. And I'll go, well, did you ask your doctor to do a particle test? What about your ApoA, your ApoB? What are those numbers? Well, I don't have that test. Well, why don't you walk in and ask your doctor to cast up both of your arms, because you may break them sometime in the future. You don't have a problem right now, but let's get a couple of casts on. Maybe get a couple of casts on your legs, because you may step out in front of a bus and get your leg broken. Is it equivalent to that? Or am I way off into left field?
I don't know if the leg analogy worked for me, but you're obviously not off field. Right, cholesterol. We have to start by saying that cholesterol is utterly life vital. This just seems to get forgotten, because whenever you mention the word cholesterol, people go, oh, mine's really high. I'm really scared of mine. If it goes high, I need to be on statins. Good, bad. I mean, we'll get into that in just a second, because we have to nail that one as well. We have to start off by saying cholesterol is utterly life vital. It's like oxygen. You die without it. It's like water. You die without it. It is in every single cell of our body. It is the essence of the structure of every cell in our body. So if, for example, and some companies won't like this example, but it's a true example, if taking a statin managed to remove all the cholesterol in your body in an instant, you would drop dead. You would be a puddle on the floor. You would have no cell structure whatsoever. You cease to exist. And yet somehow it's supposed to be a good idea just to lower this substance. So, I mean, I just start from the premise, when something is utterly life vital and your body is making it all the time, unless you can convince me that your body's got a design fault, I'm immediately suspicious. Now, I think this whole thing has come about because lowering cholesterol is phenomenally lucrative. If it were not phenomenally lucrative, I don't think anybody would know the word cholesterol. I don't think, well, statins clearly wouldn't exist. I mean, as an example, one statin, Lipitor, which is the main statin made by Pfizer, last time I checked, it earned them $279 billion. One tablet, one company. Think of the whole industry in cholesterol lowering. And there are different aspects of cholesterol, and some things that they have managed to lower and some things they haven't managed to lower. And sure enough, they lose complete interest in anything that they haven't managed to lower. Or when they try to increase some particles, and we can get into lipoproteins in a second, like they try to increase HDL thinking this was good in some way, they cause more harm than good. So they stop doing that. What they have managed to do is to lower total cholesterol and to lower the cholesterol in an LDL, which is a lipoprotein, which they call LDL cholesterol. They've managed to lower that as well. So suddenly we've got this phenomenally lucrative industry. So I would use the analogy, if somebody said to you, we don't think that women should grow more than 5'4". So the minute we see them growing so that they're going to end up more than 5'4", we're going to administer growth hormone stunting tablets so that they don't go above 5'4". And that's kind of like what we're doing with cholesterol. So they've picked a number out of the air. For you guys, I forget, I should have had the conversion to hand, but for us it's 5 mmol per litre. I think for you it's like 193 or something.
Right.
mg per dl. And they have just declared that, which is actually below what the norm used to be before they started statinating everyone, they've said, well, that we're going to call high, which is kind of like calling 5'4" high. And then we're going to make sure that nobody goes above 5'4". So growth stunting hormones, statins, that to me is the better analogy. I mean, that is the absurdity of what we're trying to do. We've just plucked these numbers out of the air. And the more you can get a lower threshold, the more people you can get on cholesterol lowering medication, the most common of which is statins, although there are even more lucrative ones coming down the line, PCSK9s being the primary ones. And it's a massive industry. So I know you guys are different because you have to have insurance checkups. We don't in the UK.
Right.
So I just don't get mine tested. I had it tested once when I worked for a company. It was frighteningly low. There's no way of raising it. It was what it was. I'd much rather have higher cholesterol than lower cholesterol. But I'm never going to get it measured again because I don't work for a company anymore. I don't want to know. I don't care.
Well, it doesn't make any sense as to and back me up on this or tell me I'm wrong, because I may be wrong. But I remember the first time I started hearing about cholesterol and the fact that it was somehow bad for you. The number they were looking for was in the 200s. I want to say 225 or 250 for us.
Yeah.
And before that, my understanding of a statin was that they were created for people who either had open heart surgery or people who had hardware in their heart, like stents or something like that, because these statins were somehow magically let the blood platelets flow through without jamming up onto these stents or whatever you have. But then they started figuring out, hey, we can start giving this to people without any hardware in their heart. So just like you said, they arbitrarily came up with 193 as being the number for us. That number used to be 250.
Mm-hmm.
And they were successfully selling a lot of product, a lot of statins, trying to get people on a 250. And then they went, wait a minute. If we just make this number lower, we can now sell X amount of more statins.
Yeah.
So at some point they lowered it. And by the way, this is going way back, Zoe, way back. People, I've been in this industry and looking at this stuff since the 1980s as a casual observer, because I had a radio show and you had to do something on the radio show. You had to say something, right? So I was like, wow, 250, now 225. I wonder why the deal is. And then it was 200. Now it's 193. The more you lower it, the more people that fit into your 5'6" or 5'4" category of being a woman, right?
Yeah.
You just keep catching more fish with the same net.
Yeah. They do it with blood pressure as well. Blood pressure is exactly the same. You can get more people on beta blockers and blood thinners if you lower the threshold. So they call 140/90 high blood pressure. That is probably the closest you get to the true normal. Now, anyone who knows even a little bit about maths, you've got your normal distribution, and the peak of the normal distribution is where the average is. I mean, it's going to be different averages in different skewed distributions or whatever, but that's basically your average of the population. And that is 140/90. So suddenly they say, no, we're not going to let that be average. You're going to make that high. You're back to the 5'4" thing again.
Yeah.
Because then anyone who is quite normally, because the normal distribution is called the normal distribution because it's normal. So, with cholesterol, for example, with using the UK measurement. So our sort of average was about 7.6. Well, they said, no, we're going to call 5 high. It's
Right.
like, that is left of the average. What you're basically saying is everyone who's average and above, and quite a few people who are below average, you're now going to call high. Because as you say, you just change one number. And who stacks the committees who change the numbers? People who've got conflicts, who've got connections with drug prescribing industries. So all you need to do, if you've got 10 people on a committee deciding that kind of seismic outcome for you as a pharmaceutical company, just make sure you've got more than 5 people on that committee who are going to swing in your way. And then you get new guidelines.
It's crazy how easily that's done, right? I remember back when we had the higher guidelines on the blood pressure. My blood pressure my entire life. You can measure me. I don't get white coat syndrome when I walk into the doctor's office. I'm 120 over somewhere between 74 and 80. So it's going to be 120 over 74 or 120 over 80. That is about it, right? I'm that spot on. They used to call mine low.
Okay.
Right. Now they call it normal. It's like, well, how does that change?
Yeah.
I didn't change one bit. I'm still the same person.
Yeah.
I know. Go on.
Yeah, you want yours to go up as you get older. I mean, clearly you're still, very young, but in a few decades or whatever, you want it to go up, because the reason we have higher blood pressure as we get older is that one of the riskiest things that we can do is to fall. Now, if you think about an elderly person getting up out of the chair, I'm thinking about my father-in-law, who has got some low blood pressure at the moment. So he's 6 foot tall. To get him from seated to standing, all of the flow has got to go around his body to get every bit active, so he has a safe standing up experience. Well, he goes to stand up and the blood doesn't get to his head fast enough. So suddenly the room is spinning. He's clutching for the armchair. He's at risk of a fall. And a fall is the beginning of the end in so many elderly people. They break something, they end up in hospital, they get an infection, they don't come out of hospital.
Yeah.
So, the body is this incredible thing that is just doing the right thing at stages of our lives for the right reason. And we just think that white coats know better. And if they're going to give us a pill that's going to do the opposite of that, hey, it must be good for me, the doctor said.
Yeah, it's the whole thing drives me nuts. And, no one's asking about my VO2 max, which is very high for my age. No one is asking about, my heart rate. Yeah. When I'm sitting here right now, and this is not total rest because I'm sitting, I have a watch on. It is 49.
Oh, wow.
It means when I'm laying in bed at night,
at
total rest, it's somewhere around 40 or 39 or 40.
Yeah.
No one cares about that, but they're looking at, just erroneous numbers of all sorts, whether it's blood pressure or whether it's, cholesterol numbers or what have you.
Yeah.
The other part that I always like to make people aware of, and I'd like you to speak on this, cholesterol is a non-essential, which means if we don't get it in our diet, our body will make it.
It will make it. It is making it right now. Yeah.
So if I don't eat enough, and your serum cholesterol is not the same as, when you eat a piece of meat that's full of cholesterol.
Yeah.
And when you start explaining that to people, they look at you, they glass over and go, yeah, but mine is high. And the other side of it is, and I've only seen maybe one study on this, I'm sure you've come across this, low cholesterol is usually associated with cancer, certain cancers.
Yeah, there is an association, yeah. I mean, first of all, let's just address that high thing because that's so important. We're back to this normal distribution.
Right.
So the normal distribution for cholesterol within the UK is going to be somewhere between 3 and 10. Mm-hmm. So if you think of sort of 5 as your 193, normal is going to be anywhere from, about, 100 to 400 or something. It's a big range. And the population has to be on that curve somewhere. So someone is going to have a cholesterol of 250 to 300. They're still on that normal distribution. It's still normal.
Right.
For an average to exist, there has to be someone lower than average and there has to be someone higher than average, because people are never all on the average. So
Right.
people have to realize that this whole, this is high, it is a nonsense. And then we have to get into that, because you said about particle size or whatever. So we've got to clear up in case that you've got any listeners who sort of don't get this to the point that they could actually explain it to their mother-in-law, let's say. So cholesterol is this substance that's the fabric of every cell. We've got that. We have a transportation system around the body, and people need to understand that, because people talk about LDL as if it's cholesterol, and we're going to really quickly just unpack these. Okay. So cholesterol needs to be right. Okay, here's the best way of doing it. So there's some water. If I drop some olive oil in there, it would just sit on the top. It wouldn't mix, because you've got a fat and you've got water and they don't mix. So think of the olive oil as any fat that needs transporting around your body, because all your cells need lipids to be healthy and to get repaired. And the water is like the blood. So the body has this incredible taxi system for transporting stuff around the body that is fat friendly on the inside of the taxi, and it's water friendly on the outside of the taxi. So it can keep the cargo happy, the lipids, and it can travel through the blood happily because the blood is okay with it. Now that transportation is called lipoproteins. Now there are a number of lipoproteins. The major ones are the ones that people will have heard of, maybe chylomicrons, which is the transportation system for the end of our digestive system, and it packages all the essential fats that we need and takes those off around the body. The ones that people have heard of are probably VLDL, which is a very low density lipoprotein. So the technical name for those taxis is lipoprotein. So you've got a very low density lipoprotein, and that's just talking about how tightly the cargo is packed. So if it's very low density, they're not packed that tightly. The next one along the line you won't have heard of, because they cannot lower it. That's intermediate density lipoprotein. You won't have heard of that one. There's no money in it.
Right.
Next one along is the one that you've heard a lot about, which is the low density lipoprotein. And then finally, you've got the high density lipoprotein. So your doctor with a straight face will say to you, I've given you your blood cholesterol test. We can always do how inaccurate that is in a second. Given you your blood cholesterol test, they will say your bad cholesterol is too high and your good cholesterol is not high enough, or something like that. So the chemical formula for cholesterol is C27H46O. There is no good version or bad version. Cholesterol is cholesterol is cholesterol. So what they're saying is the cholesterol in the low density lipoprotein taxi, or the cholesterol in the high density lipoprotein taxi, it's still the same cholesterol. But what they're saying is, I don't like the number that's coming back on the cholesterol in your LDL taxi, but I'm okay with the number in your HDL taxi. So are we still talking cholesterol, doctor, or are we now talking lipoproteins? Because cholesterol is cholesterol. You cannot tell me there's good and bad cholesterol, because cholesterol is cholesterol. If you want to carry on saying doc, I'm going to have to go and find another doc, because that's, like people saying chickens are cows. It really is that crazy. So are you still talking about my cholesterol? Or are you now talking about my lipoproteins? And if you're talking about my lipoproteins, then why are you giving me a statin? Because that's the cholesterol theory. They don't know what they're talking about. The average doctor couldn't explain to you the difference between cholesterol and lipoproteins, the size of the lipoproteins, the order, the function that they play within the body, which stuff is transporting stuff out to the cells, which lipoproteins are bringing it back to the cells, which are the ones you can't impact with statins, etc., etc. They don't know all this. So when you were saying, have they done anything about particle size? So in the average cholesterol test, the cholesterol formula is total cholesterol, is the cholesterol in your LDL taxi, the cholesterol in your HDL taxi, and then they do a fudge on triglycerides, and they say, well, let's just divide that by 5, and that dates back to an equation from the 1970s, and that's going to close enough give us total cholesterol. So this is a guessing exercise to start with.
Right.
So they can't measure LDL, and they can't measure VLDL, which is why they guess it, or triglyceride. It's not accurately enough anyway. So you've got an equation with 4 things in it, only 2 of which they can measure. They can measure total cholesterol and they can measure HDL. So they guess the other 2 or make them up in the standard cholesterol test. Now, as you said, you can go to your doc and say, actually, I want more than just the standard test, because I understand that's a bit of a guess jobby. Can you do me something on particle size? And they'll come back, and Paul Mason shows these things that he does for his patients. And it's got, I mean, these things are minute anyway, but apparently you've got minute, and then you've got slightly less than minute and slightly more than minute and all the rest of it. And then I don't know where this small, dense, large, fluffy terminology came from. That makes me want to laugh as well. Because, what are you talking about here?
That was fed to us like everything else, right?
Yeah, they make up everything. It's like, they say total cholesterol causes heart disease. And then we look at all the evidence going back to Ansel Keys. We look at the CHEST study, 130,000 people presenting at hospital having a heart attack. Most of them had low cholesterol, not high cholesterol. So we look at all this kind of evidence. We say, no, it's not total cholesterol. So they go, okay, it must be good and bad cholesterol. Then we go, there's no such thing as good and bad cholesterol. Then they say, it's the ratio of HDL to something else.
That was always my favorite of all of them. When they started doing ratio of LDL to HDL,
it's nuts.
It's so crazy that, I've told the story. I probably have told it to you, of when I first moved to Virginia. I got a new doctor, and I went in to visit the doctor, and she called back and said, hey, everything, you're in perfect health. We've never seen this kind of health in your age and all that. It's like, great, doc, thanks. She goes, but I'm very, she got very high tone, very cholesterol. And I went, well, first off, I know that they ask you to be fasted when you take those tests. No one told me to be fasted that day, so I wasn't. And which probably drove my cholesterol down that morning, because I had a ton of eggs and butter, and that, according to Dave Feldman, knocked my cholesterol down a notch or two. And I just let her talk, and then I said, you're trying to scare me. And by the way, my number was right at 200 total cholesterol.
Oh, no.
And she was telling me, we need to get you on a statin right away. You shouldn't be concerned. We don't think you're going to die of a heart attack. After that, I started, whenever I could get a doctor over to my house, which is fairly often, I'll get some scotch or some wine in them or something. And I'll get talking to them, and I'll say, hey, explain to me how you guys go about knowing about things like cholesterol, or what's high or what's low on the blood test. And just about and these are medical doctors, they'll say, we don't really know. The same thing you look at where it shows red and green in the middle. If your blood numbers fall right in the middle, then we're happy. We don't really know what the test means. We don't have time to learn, about, creatinine or this or that and the whole thing. We just want everything to fall in the middle. And I said, well, what about cholesterol? Middle, just like everything else. We don't really understand it. You need to go to a specialist that may or may not understand it. And every single doctor I've had that I've plied with scotch has told me the same thing. Some of them said, well, I'm a specialist in blah, 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 so I understand A, B, C, and D, but not the rest of it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's crazy that they're looking at that. We could do the same thing. We don't even need a doctor at this point. We could just go over to the blood center and say, give me these blood tests and just show me the little thing, because the doctor is going off of that same information.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're here saying that not everybody is equal, right? There's someone, when you look at the bell curve, there's someone at 100, someone at 400, and we throw them out and we find out what's right in the middle. And that's what we go with, right?
Yeah.
And that's how healthcare is done. And if you're in an NIH or whatever you guys have over in England, good luck, because you might die before you get in.
No, that is what's happening at the moment. I mean, you raised a really good point in terms of the fasting before the cholesterol test, there are so many things that can impact the cholesterol test. You know, apart from the fact you've got 4 unknowns and only 2 you can measure, you're starting from nonsense anyway.
Right.
Apart from the fact they don't understand the difference between cholesterol and taxi, it's more nonsense. Whether you fasted or not, whether you were running late for the appointment, whether you're stressed at the moment, probably one of the most important ones, what your vitamin D levels are. Have you sunbathed recently? Because vitamin D is made in the body by sunshine hitting the skin membranes, which contain cholesterol, and the cholesterol is synthesized into vitamin D. So when you sunbathe, your vitamin D is going to go up, your cholesterol is going to go down. The doctor's going to say, oh, I'm so pleased your cholesterol has gone down. That's not what the body's happy with. That's an inevitable consequence of making vitamin D. Your body's happy because your vitamin D has gone up. So if somebody did a study on you or did a randomized controlled trial and said, right, we're going to get those people sunbathing and we're going to get those people not sunbathing, people sunbathing are going to do better in overall health markers. And it's not going to be because their cholesterol got lower. It's going to be because they live in the sunshine. They are happy when they wake up in the morning. They've got good vitamin D levels. Oreo cookies was one that Nick Norwitz looked at recently.
Yeah.
And he managed to do, because he works with Dave Feldman a lot, and these guys love playing around with food. Dave Feldman will say, tell me what number you want my cholesterol test to be on Friday, and I'll eat during the week so I can hit that number. And he's got it down to a fine art after a few years.
Well, he used to do it with people at work. That's how we started doing it. It was like, hey, come to me, and you need to get yours down by Friday. Come on in. We'll get a lot of butter. And I think Norwitz did it on sugar. Well, the Oreo test.
Oreo cookies, which is just hilarious.
Yeah. By the way, we're not saying that sugar is healthy for you. We're just saying that you can monkey with your diet all day long and get whatever number you want to get.
Yeah.
Really that kind of crazy. Right?
Yeah, it is that kind of crazy. And there's a great paper, which I quoted in my PhD, 1989, a couple of Brits, Fraser and Fogarty, and they worked out the known error mechanisms, even without all the sunshine. Are you stressed? Are you eating Oreos? Are you fasting? Even without all of that, they said, right, just the test itself, if you go and see your doctor and you get a different number this time, by how far different does that number need to be for it to be meaningful? And they worked out that magic number is 19%. So keep the math simple. If you go to your doctor and you've got a cholesterol level of 100, next time you go, it's got to be 119 or 81. Otherwise, it's actually not materially different, according to the work that they did. And again, people don't know that either. I mean, all the guesses along the way here. So if you get to the point that your doctor has said, look, notwithstanding all of that, let's say your cholesterol is at 400 or something, we really think you should go on a statin. So then the kind of things that I suggest that people might want to look at, there's a great site called the NNT.com. So just 6 letters, the NNT.com.
And then, all right, wait, I want to make sure I have it.
Yeah.
THC.
Yeah, and then the NNT is an abbreviation for number needed to treat.
NNT.
So it's the NNT.com. Go on there, put statins in the search box, and it will come up. Last time I looked, it was about 3 or 4 options, and it will say, are you interested in someone who's already got heart disease, so they've already had a heart attack? Are you interested in someone who's at high risk of heart disease? I would just ignore that. I would basically say, have you had a heart attack or have you not had a heart attack?
Right.
So look at either one of those 2 threads. Most people are going to be looking at, I haven't had a heart attack. So then go into the number needed to treat. It does get some industry influence. I've seen these numbers change over the years, but it's still about as independent as you're going to get. And what it will say is, for those people who've not had a heart attack, your number needed to treat, and it's going to be in this ballpark, I haven't checked it recently, to avoid an event, let's say, which might be angina, 120 people need to be treated. So 120 people need to take a statin for 5 years for one person to avoid an event, which could be an angina, which quite frankly feels a little bit like indigestion. Then look at the other side of the equation, which is what's the number needed to harm. You only need to put 10 people on a statin for 5 years for one of them to experience some pretty bad muscle damage. You need, I think it's 50 before you're going to get one incident of type 2 diabetes. Now, who knows this? They're putting you on a statin like it's a zero-sum game. There's only benefit. There's no downside. Well, again, I would say once you've looked at the NNT, before you go on the statin, Google patient information leaflet Lipitor, because that is the major statin that has ever existed in the market. It's the Pfizer information leaflet. Confession time, I used to work for a pharmaceutical company. I was on the management team, which means we know that if we don't make the patient information leaflets strictly true and lawful, we, the management team, could end up in jail. So we make damn sure that they're accurate and lawful. And look on that patient information leaflet for what they call common side effects. So this is 1 in 10 people are likely to experience this. There's some pretty nasty things on there. There really are. You look down those and you think, whoa, I'm really not so sure. And then the third thing that I would send people to, if you're thinking of going for statins, we can put this in the show notes. I can send it to you later.
I appreciate
There's a great paper. Let me just scribble a note of it. The Christensen paper, I think it was 2005, which is in 2005, 15, yeah, maybe 15. Anyway, what they said is, okay, this life saved thing is nonsense because we're all going to die.
Right.
So you can't say, which your doctor will say to you, oh, we need to save your life, we'll put you on a statin. Well, if putting on a statin meant I would never die, I'd take a statin. But, I am going to die. Sad but true. So what you really want to know is by how much longer this is going to extend my life. And they looked at the evidence. And again, this is an independent team, people taking statins for 5 years. How many, pick whatever measure you want, years, months, days, do you think these guys extended their life by taking a statin for 5 years?
Can I guess?
Yeah, please do.
I'm going to guess that it shortened their life.
It might have done. That's not what they found. You could imagine that, because if your muscle goes, as it does in many people on statins, if your mood goes, if your mojo goes, if your memory goes, all the M's are affected by the statins. Yeah, you might well live not as long. They looked at it over 5 years, and the answer was 3 to 4 days.
Right. So plus or minus means you could be 3 or 4 days less. So
yeah, I think it was 3 to 4. Yeah, that's a good point. I never looked at it. They said you'd extend your life maybe by 3 to 4 days.
Yeah,
but you've got 5 years. 5 years of side effects.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. I want to. You mentioned something, and I want to take a bit of a left turn into sunscreens, because I talked about that on a recent show. I want to talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about sunscreens and vitamin D, but we're going to do that right after I tell everyone about Villa Capelli olive oil. Now, the one thing that both Zoe and I can really agree on is that the Italians and the Greeks have it figured out. If you got a broken leg, you take olive oil. If you have a wedding, you take olive oil. If it's your birthday, you take olive oil. No matter what, if it's Tuesday and you're in Italy or Greece, it's olive oil day. It's always olive oil for these people. But here's the problem in the United States. We allow these companies to cut olive oil up to 40% and still call it pure, unadulterated, 100% pure olive oil. I'm not making this up. Mm. The fact of the matter is, when you travel, when you go to Italy, you go to Greece, you go to these places, you taste the difference. Well, guess what? You can taste the difference right here in the United States too. Just go to villacapelli.com. Villa Capelli, the longest running sponsor of this show. Now, when you get to checkout, you're going to want to save money because, look, money doesn't grow on trees. So in order to save money, you put in promo code Vinnie, V-I-N-N-I-E, no wimpy Y, V-I-N-N-I-E, and you'll get 10% off. If you spend more than $125 after your Vinnie discount, meaning spend $140, get your discount, you'll still be above $125 by exactly $1. And guess what? You'll get free shipping. So get that big 3-liter 10, buy a couple of other herbs and spices over at Villa Capelli. You'll be at $140 and you will thank me. And by the way, 3 liters of olive oil lasts about 5 minutes in this house. But guess what? It'll last for you a long time if you're using it the way people normally use it. And that's what we're going to be talking about right now with Zoe, because when I lay out in the backyard, I will take a little olive oil and rub it through my hair, or what's left of my hair, which is not much. Makes your scalp feel good, that kind of thing. And back when I used to actively put oil on my body to suntan, I used to do it with olive oil. That's right. I was a greasy Italian, as they call us. But that's what we used to do back in the 80s. Zoe, you mentioned vitamin D and the skin. We just did a big show about sunscreen just the other day because I mentioned sunscreen, and then I was walking down my street here, and my neighbor, her name is Angie, and Angie goes, "I got a bone to pick." And I went, "Oh boy, here we go. Another neighbor listening to the show when they shouldn't be." And she goes, "I have skin cancer on my lip, and look at this," and the whole thing. And she said, "You should not tell people." It's like, well, sunscreens weren't around when I was a kid. And no one seemed to have that much skin cancer. I mean, it was around, but there's no proof that sunscreen stops any skin cancer, from what I can tell. But I do know that it's a chemical that's killing the Great Barrier Reef. So if it's killing the biggest reef in the world, the sunscreen just coming off of people's body and going onto this reef and it's killing that, God only knows what it's doing for your skin. And you're blocking your skin from converting sun into vitamin D through the melanin in your skin. What say you? Any thoughts whatsoever?
I'm 100% with you. I'm not with Angie. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I mean, which argument do you want to pick? As you say, we didn't have skin cancer when we didn't have sun cream. I just point people, if they're sort of, that doesn't sound very likely. Okay, so just pick up your sunscreen and look at the back of the bottle. And there are sort of 50 to 100 ingredients. And then I'll pick one of them and say, what's that? And of course, they'll say, I don't know. What's this one? I don't know. What's this one? I don't know. You're putting a chemical cocktail. Your skin is your largest organ in your body. You're taking your most precious possessions in the entire world, your darling little children, and you are smothering them with this chemical cocktail. That to me is an even bigger issue than not letting them get vitamin D. Vitamin D is bad enough, but this chemical cocktail that you're putting on, for me, is almost certainly far more likely the cause of skin cancer. That's what makes sense. What doesn't make sense is this thing that we've been living with for 350,000 years, however far back you want to go to Australopithecus lucy or whatever, go back as far as you like. This thing that we've been living with in the sky wasn't causing skin cancer all that time. And then, suddenly it's just started causing skin cancer in the last 5 or 6 decades when we just happen to have had sun cream. So, I mean, the other way of looking at sun cream, and it really amuses me because we've just got back from the Canaries, where, by the way, we got through a litre of olive oil in 2 weeks, and that's just me and Andy. So I could come to your house. But we've just got back from the Canaries, and it's really funny because you see other people, let's say, on the beach, and we're just going for a walk, and they're out there at 8 o'clock in the morning because, they want to go home with a really good tan. So they're out there at 8 o'clock and they're lathering on the factor 50. And I kind of want to go up to them and I want to say, do you know what factor 50 means? And they'll say no. And I'll say, it means that you can stay out 50 times longer in the sun than you would if you didn't have the factor 50 cream on. So let's say you're quite fair and maybe you could stay out in the sun for 10 minutes before you would start to go a little bit pink and maybe, in really strong sunshine, high UV, maybe things would really go quite awry in sort of 20 minutes. Well, okay, so you can spend 50 times more than 10 minutes in the sun. That's more hours of sunshine than there are going to be today. Right. So how about you don't put that on and you spend the right amount of time out in the sun, which for you might be 10 minutes. And then on day 2, it might be 20 minutes. And on day 3, it might be 30 minutes. And they're like, but I like lying in the sun. It's so much more comfortable lying in the shade, reading a book, enjoying the warmth, and not feeling like your skin is burning and not having to put that stuff on all the time. So Andy and I spend the day, we do some work, we go shopping, we go and, feed the pussycats, we can read, and then we get half an hour in the sun. And then the next day, 40 minutes, and the next day, 50 minutes. And by the end of the holiday, we were enjoying 2 hours in the sun. It was only 22 degrees.
By the way, when you think about 20 minutes in the sun, that's 20 minutes each side. So that's 40 minutes.
No, for me, I was actually meaning 20 minutes. So it is like 10 minutes each side.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. Andy will walk around. So he's kind of getting the all over thing anyway. But why? And then the sun goes in, and this is really funny as well. So the sun then goes in at 2 o'clock, and they've put their factor 50 on. So they're going to go to bed that night. Their skin is not going to be any different in color. And they've just had this chemical cocktail slathered all over them all day and then ruined the swimming pool and the barrier reef and everything else. I have never put sun cream on. Never.
Same here, except for, when you go snow skiing, your nose
Yes.
gets really red.
Yes.
And it's sticking out of your sunglasses or whatever.
Yes.
I've always used the zinc.
Zinc, exactly. And it goes white and it looks really funny. Yeah.
Right. But the cool thing about the zinc is it's also keeping because the wind is what really makes your nose turn red, almost purple when you're skiing, right? You just put a little zinc and it takes care of the problem.
Yeah, right? And you get coloured ones now, so you can put like a little strip across here and a strip across here and a strip on your nose, and it looks really cool. Yeah.
So it's like, I have nothing with pillows. If you want to put it on your lips, knock yourself out. But this is not covering, and I use the same thing. It's like it's the biggest organ in your body. What are you doing? You wouldn't. I mean, think about it. People, I don't want too much alcohol because it's going to ruin my liver. Okay, it's the same thing.
It's going everywhere. Yeah.
It's going on your biggest organ, way bigger than your liver, and you're covering yourself head to toe. And, the part I brought up on the podcast, you can go back and listen. It's like a week ago. If you're that concerned about the sun, they make sun protection clothing that you can put on. You can get these shirts. They look kind of cool. You get the hat that I wear when I know I'm going outside for long periods. If I take a 2-hour walk or go hiking, I wear these hats that have a brim all the way around.
And the flap, like the kids have, they have the little flap going to protect the back of the neck.
Yeah, that Serena does that. But when Serena used to do ultra running in the desert, she wasn't so much worried about cancer. She didn't want to be really red and chopped up on the back of her neck, because women care about the way their skin looks down the road, right? So she looked like an Arabian when she would go out in the desert with these things all over her face, Lawrence of Arabia, and that was just the deal. So if you're really concerned, don't put the sunscreen on, wear a shirt.
Yeah.
Sun protection shirt. And they have sun protection for your legs, and you can get the hat. I have something called a Tilly hat that works just fine. And my Tilly hat's got to be 20 years old, still looks brand new. Yeah. It's the best hat in the world, and I don't even sell them. So don't think I'm getting a commission from the Tilly people, but I'm glad we agree on that, because that one always drives me nuts. Moving on, because I can talk to you for hours.
There won't be much we disagree on, I don't think, actually.
That's the thing. You and I never did. I wish that we disagreed a little bit, because it would make for a more interesting conversation. The new dietary guidelines. Now, I know we're going to touch the third rail here just a bit, because right before the last administration went out, there was a new dietary guideline. Now we have Robert F. Kennedy in there. And,
has he been? He hasn't been confirmed, has he?
But he will. I mean,
I hope so. It's. We shouldn't give away the time, so people know when we recorded this, but it's going on right now.
Yeah. It's we're recording this on the 29th of January. So I'm all for it. I know people don't like him because he's on the Trump side of things. I don't give a rat's ass if you're on the right or the left, folks. I'm not here to talk politics.
Health is too important. It's got to override everything. You've got to put politics aside and say, who's going to take the corruption out of the FDA? Who's going to stop the revolving doors? Who's going to really look at the guidelines and say, we've had them, this will be the 10th edition. Are Americans really getting healthier? I don't care which party you come from. If you're going to look at some of those big issues, and he looks the part.
Well, here's the thing. I was in D.C. a couple of months ago doing a rally with these people that asked me to come say something at this rally. And then after the rally, I'm sitting around the table with a bunch of the speakers, right? Including Nina, including Georgia Ede and Georgia's wife, and all of these people. And they were talking about, some of the people who, not Nina and not Georgia, because we're all old, we're all a bit calloused, right? We've been here for a few minutes. But these new people putting on the event, they were like, it's a groundswell. We need a groundswell. We need to do this. And I said, listen, guys, you can groundswell all you want. We will never beat Unilever. We will never beat Kraft. We're not going to beat Purina. We can't beat Coca-Cola. These people have billions, and we're playing with groundswell. Are you serious? And they said, well, you seem to have a handle on media. What do you think? And I said, look, it's probably not going to be popular at this table because I'm looking at a lesbian and her wife who are friends of mine. I said, but the only chance we have is if Donald Trump actually wins this election. And when this was going on, this was in late summer, right? So we didn't know who was going to win, right? Kamala had just gotten the nomination and the whole thing. I said, I don't care who wins because politicians don't rule my life. I rule my life. So I don't really care who wins. I don't care who anyone votes for. But the one person who seems to be saying the right things right now is RFK. And look, people are going to stop listening. People are turning this podcast off right now going, Vinny's a fucking asshole. He's an idiot. How can he possibly agree with RFK? He's an anti-vaxxer. He's this, he's that. Okay. The guy is talking about what needs to be done. He's talking about making rules, getting the FDA, getting the pockets of politicians not to be filled by food and drug companies. And that's what this guy's talking about. And this is something, whether he gets it done or not, that will be a different conversation. I don't know if he can get it done, right? Because Michelle Obama tried doing something. She was sleeping with the president.
Yeah, good point.
Because we're going to go after these food companies and this, that, and the whole thing. And 1 week later, she was like, let's just drink an extra glass of water and plant the garden in the backyard.
And she did that like, let's move instead of the diet, didn't she? Yeah, you're right. That was so quick.
By the way, when she did that, I said on this podcast, as soon as she says, we're going to go after big food and we're going to do this, I came on this podcast and I said, Anna's my co-host on Monday. I said, I don't know how that slipped through, but that is not going to happen. And 1 week later, it was drink an extra glass of water, let's move and go plant the garden in your backyard.
Wow.
They literally knocked her down to go, shut up, don't do this. And if you can knock Michelle Obama down, well, in the past, we've just killed Kennedys. That's just what we do. His dad, we killed his uncle. That's our job, right? So let's see what happens.
I shouldn't laugh because that's just about to be released, I think, isn't it?
But here we are with another Kennedy disrupting, right? And when you have a Kennedy disrupting, people don't like it.
Yeah.
Right? So it'll be interesting to see what he can get done. Whether you love the man or hate the man, I'm agnostic about it. I just want to see someone do something.
At a high level, yeah. It just makes such a difference. Yeah. Yeah, but anything other than the groundswell level, that's what I mean, because I'm with you on that one. We have been doing this for such a long period of time, and there were people who were doing this before us. You know, I spoke at Barry Groves's funeral. Barry Groves was writing articles why low carb needs to be high fat, not high protein, 50 years ago. You know, he was just saying that's the way food is built. This, you know, he was out there he did his PhD on fluoride. You know, what America's just about to realize that fluoride is a toxin. We're just about to put it in the water over here in the counties that don't have it already.
So we're running away from it and you guys are running towards it?
Oh, I mean, that is the story of our life at the moment. So you feel like you're living in this sort of weird universe. I've got a lot of American friends, and it seems like the things that are being worked out over there, you know, men in women's sports is really not a great idea. You know, particularly in things like boxing and wrestling and volleyball, because they get killed. And yet over here it's like, oh, well, that's not very kind, is it? Because, you know, if someone, you know, if they say they're a woman kind of thing. And then if they want to go in a woman's prison because they've, you know, don't know, I shouldn't even go there. But we are going, wherever you're going, we're going in the opposite direction.
Here's the crazy thing. I play college sports. I played college football. And the way sports work in colleges, let me give you a little background, a little lesson here in the United States. Sports are a big business in the United States, the NCAA. So I played football. Football is one of the few sports that actually operates in the black.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
So it makes a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
There are very few basketball programs. I know people that go, wait a minute, Vinny, what are you talking about? These big programs. There's like 3 programs or 4 programs, basketball programs in the country that does not operate in the red. And it's because they have such donors, big donors coming in. I think Lexington, the Wildcats, and a few of these teams actually don't fall short on any given year. Football, where you put somewhere in Division I football, where you put somewhere between 60 and 110,000 asses in seats 12 times a year, and you have all the championships, not to talk about all of the television proceeds, because these games are like pro games. Serena said to me one time, she goes, is this a pro game or a college game? She can't tell the difference, right? Because she's not from here. And I said, honey, the only difference is at college games, they have a band, a marching band at halftime. That is about the only difference, right? They're both making bazillions of dollars that pays for all of the other sports.
Wow.
My girlfriend in college was a volleyball player. She was on a scholarship. Football paid for her scholarship. That's just the way it works. Title IX took money from the guys who make the money and put it into the female sports. I was all for it because I saw these girls, because I was in love with my girlfriend. I'd go to practice, I'd go to the games and do the whole thing. These women were working just as hard as the guys were, right? Swimming, the same thing. Who goes to a damn swimming meet in college? No one. Exactly, zero. The parents don't show up.
Oh,
right? Because they would have to fly in for a meet, and they have a lot of meat. So these people operate in obscurity. There's no asses in seats. There's no money. I believe that women's sports are supposed to be, subsidized by the men's sports, by football, right? No question. I fought for that.
well done.
I've been fighting for Title IX from day one. When you let a guy that's got his cock and balls, I don't know how to say that nicely. I think you guys say giblets where you are. Leah Thompson, I think the guy's name was.
Yeah, Leah Thomas. Yeah, Riley Gaines. Yeah, I love Riley. Yeah.
And you just let this guy go in and obliterate Title IX, and you got people cheering for him.
Yep.
Now, look, I would even make an argument if you had the cock and balls chopped off, you grew up as a biological male. You still have musculature that a woman will never get naturally.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
We banned everything. You can't have DHEA.
Yeah.
Why can't they have DHEA? Why can't they take hormones? And why can't the women take it? Well, it's not fair to the other women. Yet you're letting someone who's been living with hormones forever do this.
Yeah.
Right? What say you?
It's insane. I mean, the idea that Biden signed this as one of his presidential orders on day one, I was utterly, utterly horrified. I don't understand what the rationale is that anyone can think that that is acceptable. I mean, the only place where they seem to go is if somebody decides that they're a woman or wants to be a woman or whatever, then you've got to let them be a woman. But as you say, they're not even pretending to be a woman. This is a guy stealing a scholarship from a woman. This is, I think it's Brendan O'Neill, who's a very good, I don't know what his actual job is, whether he's a journalist or a commentator, but he's a sort of, British Jordan Peterson kind of thing. And he calls it misogyny in drag. And I think that's actually a really good description because it is very misogynistic towards women. That Leah Thomas male must really hate women to want to do that. The smugness, the arrogance of, I don't care how hard you've worked, Riley, I'm going to be able to get in that pool. I mean, she drew with the guy, for goodness sake. I mean, that was sensational. She drew with a man in a women's sport, and then they give the prize to him because that's the photo opportunity. No wonder she's doing what she does now.
There was only one trophy, so she tied, which is almost impossible in swimming.
Yeah,
Somehow they tied, and they only had one trophy, and they said, we're going to let him take the picture because that looks better.
Yeah, that's the...
But the part that, I didn't know much about Riley until I heard her in an interview on my buddy's podcast. My buddy Mike Rowe had her on. Again, this is as far into politics as I've ever gotten. But this is something that's near and dear to my heart because of Title IX.
Yeah.
And she was on that show, and Riley said, we saw this guy coming, right? He wasn't on hormone blockers or anything else. He's an intact male.
Mm-hmm.
And he's knocking girls out of scholarships. He's knocking girls out of making it to the national finals, which could get them into the Olympics, which, all these type of things, right?
Yeah.
He's completely throwing a monkey wrench into women's sports.
Yeah.
And you would think the people who want to help women would have jumped on the side of Riley Gaines, and they went against Title IX. Everything went against her. It's like, wait, when I was growing up, I'm 62. Women were burning bras and, doing all this stuff. And, Helen Reddy, I am woman, watch me roar, and all this stuff, right? All of that right out the door in one swoop, one guy swimming with women where you can actually see the pieces and parts in the bathing suit. And this girl, Riley Gaines, said, I was quiet at first because I thought the adults would stand up and go, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I thought the colleges, I thought the NCAA, I thought the government, somebody would stand up and go, this is so absurd, we can't have this.
Yeah.
But no one did.
Yeah. And it's not just the sport. She had to undress in front of him, and she had to have him undress in front of her. So at the point you're trying to focus on the race, you're about to be the best person that you can sportingly be. He has the upper hand in so many ways because you're embarrassed, you're shamed, you're outraged, you're mad as hell, you're wondering where the hell the grown-ups are. All of those emotions are going through you, that adrenaline or whatever. I mean, the outrage that she must have felt. And then, as you say, everyone's like, well, you're the mean one. When we're all on his side. I really thought I was losing my mind during some of that. You have to keep touching base with, people like you or my hubby or Nina or something. It's like, I'm not losing it here, am I? On what level is this possibly acceptable? And outside sport, and then the bloke rapes someone and he's going to prison and he says, I identify as a woman. I want to be in a women's prison, and then rapes a few more women. Oh, we didn't see that one coming. Well, he did.
Yeah.
That's why he wanted to be in a women's prison. Why are we allowing this? Oh, be kind. We're not being kind to women at the moment. Well, I think it's turning around a bit over where you are. And we could really do with some of that over here because it's not turned around at all in the UK.
Well, it was a curious time because I'm looking around thinking, when you say touch base, right? It's hard to touch base when you simultaneously have dudes in a boxing ring with a woman and dudes putting on swimsuits. And as Riley Gaines explains it, these swimsuits are so tight.
Yeah.
It takes a while to get into them. They don't, these things are not like a regular swimsuit, these racing suits, and you're self-conscious just changing in front of other women. Now there's a dude watching you change.
Yeah.
And women are ducking into lockers and everywhere else. This is simultaneously going on with the Me Too movement, which was very strange for me. It's like, we have the same group of people.
Yeah.
Me Tooing people.
Good point. Yeah.
We had a politician who was also a comedian in this country who pretended to put his hands over a woman's boobs while she was sleeping. They were doing a USO tour together or something. And he pretended to take a picture. He didn't touch her. He didn't molest her. He didn't do anything. he was a senator or representative, I can't remember, who just pretended to put, because the woman was a playmate, a Playboy playmate at one point, and she had on a flak jacket because they were like in Fallujah or somewhere. I don't know where the hell they were. And he took a picture. He got Me Too'd. He didn't touch the woman. He didn't rape the woman. He took a picture that he shouldn't have taken. He got Me Too'd.
Yeah.
At the same time, Riley Gaines is tucking his cock into a women's bathing suit to go beat up on him. And the same group of people are okay with both.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought of that, actually. I remember the Me Too movement, and I hadn't connected the two. That's a really good point.
Oh, we started Me Tooing people who spoke out in any way or any form. And by the way, I like the idea of Me Too. I don't think that men should be able to take advantage of women in any way, shape, or form. I'm good with that, right? If someone diddled you or raped you, I was in Hollywood for a lot of years. You hear a lot about the casting couch. You hear about the stuff, and you just want to throw up. My wife is an actress, right?
James Bond.
Actress. You don't want that to happen to people you love, right? But while that's going on, the same group of people who are going, yeah, let's go get those men, are saying, hey, let's let men go into a boxing ring with women.
Yeah, in the Olympics. I mean, how did the Olympics allow that to happen? Two men won boxing medals.
Yeah, but think about that. The Olympics are scared too. Everyone is scared. Everyone is scared, and no one wants to speak up.
Who are they scared of?
They don't want to be canceled. Nobody wants to be canceled, right? Wow. You got to be people like you and me who go, you know what, I don't give a fuck. You know, what are you going to cancel me from? You know, where are we headed? But now we're just crazy older people just yelling into a void. Right? Anytime we say anything, okay, boomer. You think that hurts us somehow? You think boomer? Come on. You got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. But yeah, that's where we are. Two things can happen simultaneously.
We started this. We were going to talk about the Dietary Guidelines, weren't we? You said 2020, and then I don't know who went off piste.
You know what?
It's good though. I think it's better than the Dietary. I mean, the Dietary Guidelines are shit. That's all people need to know. The scientific report has been published. They're saying, dear Dietary Guidelines Committee, can we have even more of the rubbish that we've been giving you for the last 45 years? As Gary Taub said, you know, they've gone from pro-plant to positively anti-meat, you know, just a little subtle shift. You know, I made a scribble actually, because it just beggars belief. So at 2,000 calories a day, you're supposed to be having 2.5 cups of veg, and quite a lot of that should be legumes, 2 cups of fruit, 6 ounces of grains, 3 cups of dairy, which of course should be low fat, just 5.5 ounces of protein. And that can, of course, be nuts, seeds, soy products. You know, heaven forbid it would actually be meat and eggs and whatever. And 27 grams of oil a day. Completely empty calories, which of course must be seed oil. You know, they're probably not saying go and put in Vinnie's code on that great website and, you know, get your really healthy olive oil.
Where you could get some EPA, DHA.
No, don't be doing any of that. You want to get some nice seed oils from Unilever, because, you know, like 9 out of 20 of the people on the committee had some food industry or whatever similar connections or whatever. So yeah, that's just more of the same. So I'm kind of like you, just forget the politics, folks. If there's one guy and his initials are RFK and he can salvage anything from that, if there's any time left to say, guys, hang on, you know, RFK didn't get a body like this when I'm 70 years old by eating like that. You know, he's got to be a low carb man.
He is. Look, I had a woman come at me on Twitter the past 2 days, right? And, you know, I don't say anything, but people started saying, well, look at him and look at you, right? And I don't think we should just be looking at someone's physical stature, but there is some truth behind it. If eating a lot of red meat and eggs and fish and chicken the way I do, I should probably not look so good, right? I should probably be very unhealthy, but I'm not.
Exactly. Yeah, your vitals that nurse called you up about, they would not have been as good as they were. HbA1c, blood pressure, pulse rate, all the stuff that she didn't take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. And I love that people are looking at the new guidelines where they're actually talking. It's like, wait a minute, they're telling you to have Cheerios before you have an egg.
Oh yeah, that's the Mozaffarian thing, isn't it? This food, it's got a name. Nina will know the name just straight off the top of her head. She's done some really good work on it. I mean, she's just highlighted the worst examples, sort of, as you say, Cheerios better than eggs. Seriously.
Yeah. Captain Crunch, I think, was better than eggs. So, folks, if you want to really dial your diet in, go get yourself some Captain Crunch.
I sort of find myself saying they must think that we're mad, but they get away with it. So there must be a lot of people out there kind of like, oh, if someone's done a study and they say that Cheerios are better than eggs, well, actually, I'd rather eat Cheerios because they taste really great because they're full of sugar and they've got some fat in there. And I could eat them all day long because you'll get addicted to them really quickly. Do they want to go with this advice? Because actually it's the junk that they're craving. Why can't they just sort of step back a second and go, hang on, that doesn't make sense. We didn't have Cheerios when you could recruit any male in the US into the US Army straight away because they would meet the criteria. Now maybe 10% would get somewhere close and might be able to be knocked into shape. These have not helped. They have not helped America, and they've not helped the rest of the world because we just copy you. So the dietary guidelines are actually really important. Because we just follow you guys. We think you've worked it all out.
And we haven't. That's the problem. I mean, people will say to me, come on, Vinnie, people know the truth. It's like, no, because, municipalities, hospitals are going to follow it. Schools are going to follow it. The military ends up following it.
Yeah.
And look, I can't tell you the number of military people I talk to per week, people who are captains and lieutenants and the whole thing saying, hey, get something done. And it's like, do you understand? I'm just a dude behind the mic. I can't go to the government and say, hey, we need to change what the military's eating.
Yeah.
Right. Even D'Agostino, who worked out something for the Navy SEALs, right? Because they're using rebreathers and all this. So they figured out, if you have a better diet, high in fat, and get these people in dietary ketosis, they work better with the rebreathers. And I don't want to get into the whole deal.
Of course they would. Respiratory quotient, that makes sense.
Say again?
Respiratory quotient, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's clever straight away.
Yeah. And by the way, if that works for rebreathers, why can't we do it with the rest of the military?
Yeah. The rest of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But no, they can't figure that out. Right. No one wants to sit around and figure that out.
Yeah.
We're busy with dealing with minutia, and it doesn't work in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Your friends have just got to, and they say, have you got any food intolerances and allergies? Because they have to ask that now. If there's somebody wanted to be vegan in the military, they actually cater for it, which is insane. They've just got to say, look, I'm allergic to plants. I can only eat meat and cheese and eggs and yogurt and heavy cream. So I would say, I mean, I do eat plants, but
if you just say I'm allergic to carbohydrates, why wouldn't they be able to hey, military guys, they're doing that. Let me know what they tell you. Look, it's like when you get on an airplane, before you get on an airplane, let them know that you're kosher.
Yeah, or nut allergy, and then the whole plane is not allowed to open a bag of nuts.
No, don't say allergy. Just say I'm kosher. They give you a better meal.
Yeah, religious belief. Yeah, it's important.
Yeah, religious belief is very, very important. They'll give you a better meal. Yeah. Military, do the same thing.
Yeah.
I need to turn NSNG into a religion. How do I do that? Why not? If I turn it into a religion and then get people to follow the NSNG religion, then the military would have to respect that, right?
Yeah, they would. Yeah.
Might have a workaround here. I'm thinking now.
You'll get emails. You'll get show comments.
Yeah, people are going, hey, don't do that. Hey, but why not?
Yeah.
Religion doesn't just have to be about God, right? Let's make it a food religion.
Yeah. Veganism, I think, is a religion. I think if you looked at what defines a religion, veganism would be pretty close.
Yeah, well, it started in a religion. It started with the
Yeah,
Seventh-day Adventist,
yeah,
and that's how we ended up with our dietary guide, the original Dietitians Association, and they
yeah,
still follow that.
yeah,
It's just nuts.
yeah.
Um, Zoe, I could keep you forever. Before we go off the air, promise me you're coming back.
I will, of course, I'll come back. Anytime you want me back, I'll come back.
I wish I could just have you as my co-host every Friday. You would get into shenanigans that just would not be good. Would not be good. You're
People
ready.
will listen to the podcast, and when I jumped us back to the Dietary Guidelines, they'll be like, "Oh no, why did she do that?" I was really enjoying the whole
Well, look,
political rant. But
we touched the third rail a little bit, right?
yeah, we did,
And
didn't we?
I didn't.
Pushed the envelope.
Did I say what side I was on? No.
No, no.
All I said, because no one knows what side I'm on. I just don't think, because I fought so hard for Title IX for women to compete against women,
Yeah.
that I'm just flabbergasted that we just threw that all those years.
Yeah,
We just threw right out the window.
yeah. And
And
it
said,
happened to be
women,
thrown out by a Biden person, and it happened to be annulled again by a Trump type person. It's the issue for me, not who signed one order and who signed the other order.
right, right. This is not right or left. I'm just glad that I'm glad that an adult stood up in the room. I don't care if it was Biden. I don't care if it was Trump. I don't care who does this. I just want women to be able to compete safely.
Yeah,
I have a daughter.
yeah,
Now, she's not athletic, but I would hate to think that she would have lost a job. She's an attorney, or didn't
yeah,
get a job based on the fact that a man pretended he was a woman to get her job.
yeah. Well,
Right?
there's the other thing, isn't there? The Oscars. Best actress this year is probably going to go to a man.
Really?
Yeah. There's a movie, apparently, it is so bad, and it's had something like 13 nominations. So it's going to be the big thing this year.
Right?
And it's kind of like, I saw a trailer because a friend said, "This is so bad, you have to watch the trailer." Well, the trailer was like 2 minutes of my life that I just can't get back. The trailer is so bad. You have to just watch the trailer. Just like give up those 2 minutes. It is so bad. This
What's
is going to
the movie?
sweep
Do
you.
you know what the movie is called?
Look up like Oscar nominations, and it's the one that's in, is it Avery or something, or it's like a one word and it's not too long, but it's a musical about somebody a man who wants to be a woman, and it's about the transitioning. And the trailer had something like a song about how you could cut all the bits off, and do you want, is Adam's apple gone? Yeah. Do you want his bollocks gone?
But
Yeah.
all right, but I'm okay with
Yeah.
that. I'm okay if you want to chop off everything. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, but it's like,
And by
who's
the
going to
way,
win the best actress? That's the issue I've
okay,
got.
but here's the thing: acting is acting, right? If that happens and a male wins female, that's an actor against an actor.
Yeah, but he should be in the male category. He should have been nominated as best male actor,
Okay,
in my view.
okay, and that's fine. But we're not talking about physicality when it comes to that.
No,
We're
but
talking
there's
about a skill of
4
acting.
actresses who are not going to get their chance.
Well, that's Hollywood likes this sort of thing. So there you go.
That is true.
The bottom line is that an actor is an actor, right? A male actor and a female actor can both be the same. My concern is with the physicality,
Yeah,
and that's when it's not a fair playing field.
yeah.
Maybe we should do away with best male and best female actors and just
Well,
say,
they did that with the music awards in the UK. They're called the Brit Awards.
right?
And certainly 2024, I don't know if that was the first year or whether 23 was the first year, they did away with the best female artist and the best male artist, and it was just best artist. It's like, so there's only one person. You've just taken away, you've halved the chance of getting an award. So you've got Ed Sheeran.
But you see, I'm happy with that because
Okay.
not everybody should be getting a trophy. We shouldn't be living by trophies. Here's the thing. Years and years ago in Hollywood, I say, "Oh, this is my friend," not Serena, before Serena. "This is my friend. She's an actress." "No, Vinnie, I'm an actor."
Okay.
"Okay, so when you guys have your award show, and they have best actor and best actress, if you get best actress, are you going to turn it down because they're still calling it best actress?
Well, actually, no, I probably used the wrong language there, actually, because I think they call them best female actor, best male actor. I don't know. I don't watch the Oscars.
The bottom line is, if you're going to pick the best, put the males and females together and pick one.
Yeah, maybe.
Why are we picking two?
Yeah.
See, you worried about more people getting more awards. I'm trying to give people less awards, right? Let's just pick the best. If it was a female, fine. If it was a male, fine. Right?
Which is true. They don't do best female director and best male director, do they? They just do best director. Yeah, best actor and best supporting actor.
That's right. It should be 2 awards: best actor, best supporting actor. Call it a day. See, I'm fine with that. But when it comes to sports, now you have you have inequality. So you have to have females competing against the best females and males competing against the best males. Mm. And there's a woman, Serena Williams. Ever hear of her?
Yeah, of course I have. Yeah.
She's over in England about 10 times.
Yeah.
Okay. They asked her, would you compete against men? She said, absolutely not. She goes, you could take the guy who's ranked 150th and he would kick my ass.
Yeah, yeah.
And Serena Williams is not even arguably, she's the best tennis player ever on the female side.
Yeah.
There's no one even close. That woman will tell you, you could take the person who's ranked 150th in the world, and he will obliterate me on the court.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if she's saying that, what chance does a female boxer have in a ring against a dude?
Yeah.
What chance does a woman have in a swimming pool against a dude?
Yeah.
Right? And that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Title IX, man, let's bring it back. Right? Let's get back to women competing against women and being the best they can be.
Yeah.
Right? Caitlin Clark, a basketball player, she's tearing up the NBA. Right? The WNBA. She can't be in the NBA.
Yeah.
Why not? And if that's the case, why can't some of the guys that's like the 6th man on the bench in the NBA, why can't they just go over to the WNBA? We don't see that now, do we?
Yeah.
They're keeping those separated. Why can't they go right over?
Yeah.
See, I just want it all to be fair. This is not about politics. I want women to be able to compete against women to figure out who the best is.
Yeah.
So there you have it. Hang out because we have to wait till the StreamYard thing.
Yeah. Andy's good at all that stuff. Don't worry.
Yeah, don't go away. I want to commiserate with you off the air anyway.
Oh, yeah, with what's going on in the UK. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't even start. Oh, it's depressing. We have the politics of misery. It's just so depressing.
It's all depressing.
Yeah.
I had a song pulled up and then I let it go by and all these other songs came up. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, we got to get back to it. How did we get into Fleetwood Mac? Oh, wait, I'm on the wrong one. Hang on. I have it right here. There it is. All right. Folks, you know what to do. We all go shopping on Amazon. Before you go to Amazon, go to VinnieTortorich.com. Click through the banner. It puts a little coal on the fire. It gets my train down the track. You can check out Zoë Harcombe at Zoe. Tell them where to find you.
ZoeHarcombe.com, or I'm at Zoë Harcombe on Twitter.
Go check her out, and you're going to love what she's doing over there. We were talking about blood pressure, and as you know, everything reminds me of a song. So we're going to go out with my friend, Dr. John. On behalf of Zoë Harcombe, my name is Vinnie Tortorich. Put life into living and do it with high blood pressure.